It's interesting, but not all that surprising, that I've heard less and less about Juve this season, and this despite Juve actually topping Serie A for the moment, while they wait for Inter to play their match in hand. It's not surprising to me because everybody knows when teams are doing poorly or underachieving, they appear in the news more than when they are doing well. It's the same reason why fan channels on YouTube have their biggest booms in growth when their respective teams are struggling. Top or not, the fact that they are even in the running at the moment is a massive improvement on what was a disastrous campaign last season. Losing 5-1 to Napoli, failing to get out of their Champions League group, the points deduction, talk of them potentially being relegated, absolute chaos behind the scenes, banned from European competition by UEFA, and the list goes on. It's fair to say that it was an absolute disaster on all fronts for Juve. It was an incredibly damaging scene for Juve, but as I will argue towards the end of the video, if you take a glass half full look at this situation, I believe that the outcome has led to some changes of practice both on the pitch and off of it that will in the end, in the long run, benefit Juve greatly. Hey, I'm Adrian and thanks for stopping by Rabona TV. Just a couple of quick notes for this one. I'll be joined by my good friend Beppe from Just Juve, an English-speaking Juventus fan channel. However, he also recently started a new channel that covers all of football in Europe, and he is uploading news videos almost daily, when he doesn't have the flu at least. So I have linked to that below. Please be sure to subscribe and show him some love because what do you get in return? Your daily fix of football news. All right. Let's get into this one. What a difference a year makes, eh? It was about 12 months ago that we were hearing about Juve's prospective 15-point deduction. This was on top of some other travesties that I made note of in the intro, but let's go over them again here.
5-1 loss against Napoli, big disaster out of Champions League. Last year it was a total disaster for Juventus, where, on the 20th of January with this -15, with the way that we were playing, with the result that we had, it was really tough for all Juventini. They were really depressed at that moment because, it's not only the moment that you are living, but also the question that you have regarding your future. Not really with a beautiful playing style. And I understood that after the season ended, where you had some players, they had no idea what they were playing for.
What does he mean by this? Well, look at it this way. At this time, the media was swirling with all sorts of question marks about Juve's future. They had a point deduction, which made qualifying for Europe difficult to begin with, and then there were rumors of a potential ban from European competitions, which of course was later confirmed in July of 2023. And hey, even some rumors circulating that Juventus could have been relegated from Serie A altogether. The players would have had to fight for their lives to qualify for a European place to begin with. That's when you don't even consider what was at the time a potential ban from UEFA as well. And so subconsciously, while players would never admit to it publicly, the thought of fighting for essentially nothing will affect your commitment and playing levels. Fighting to finish in a European place makes sense, but beyond pride, what's the difference between finishing in 8th or 12th as far as what you actually get from that? Nothing. The chaos at the board level trickles down onto the pitch. Performances are often a reflection of what's happening behind the scenes of the club. In Juventus' case, they completely cleaned house in fall of last season. Andrea Agnelli, gone. Pavel Nedved, gone. Maurizio Arrivabene, arrivederci. Where they previously had people such as Nedved, a former pro who knows the football well, in executive roles, given Juve's circumstances and the messes that needed cleaning up, the new board members were specialists of a different kind.
We start really to build from the top, which I think it's the most intelligent thing to do. But people that were not that much into football, but really lawyers and finance people that needed to take care of what was happening off the field, and that was priority number one.
In fact, the new CEO, Juventus' Maurizio Scanavino, didn't try to sugarcoat things when speaking about the club and the problems they had as a direct result of not playing in Europe in this case.
The CEO said publicly for the very first time, we need to rebuild. Feet on the ground, but we need to rebuild. which a lot of fans, when we were not winning, when Max Allegri came back the first time, were thinking we are starting to rebuild. But actually, it had never been publicly said. And I believe that this one was an important one, publicly saying we are rebuilding. We are not in the best financial position, which is important to also say, so that the expectations on transfer market are not high, but also saying we need to be humble, self-criticism and improving results, but also the way of playing.
Then finally, Allegri received some backup on the sporting side of things when Cristiano Giuntoli arrived as a technical director.
Him or nobody else. If it was not him, then we would have covered one more year without really sporting structure, but we wanted him, and thankfully De Laurentiis, president of Napoli, said, and he waited really long, but on the 7th of July said, okay, Cristiano Giuntoli can leave Napoli, and that's where we presented him at Juve. And really important, because I told you, top board of members, one thing off the field, and then investing in sporting side with a sporting director that is also there to speak with a coach, to understand, to have one common vision, and then you think about the next step, which was transfer market.
When you look at Juve's squad, you may not see a ton of different faces from last season, but they are certainly there. An era came to an end, really, as with the departure of Chiellini a few years ago, Bonucci left Juve this past summer as well. The very short-lived Di Maria era also came to an end as the Argentino followed his heart to the great club that is SL Benfica, of course. He turned down money in Saudi Arabia to play for the club of his heart. What an absolute legend. You love to see that, especially for Benfica. Right, guys? Anyway, longtime servant of the club, Juan Cuadrado, also left as his contract came to an end and he decided to join who else but Inter, Juve's biggest rivals, where he has played a total of 261 minutes for the Nerazzurri. Those injury problems are back. And then, of course, there's Paredes. Didn't have a massive impact at Juventus, not really, but was another big name to take off of their books, all in the name of reducing their wage bill in order to balance the books a little better and get back into the positive numbers, and eventually back to making more moves in the transfer market, maybe.
We can't anymore compete at the moment on the huge international stage. We can't go and sign the 100 million euro players, which actually, except of a few exceptions, was never a real big strategy of Juve. But we have to find the new players. Like, for example, now, it's not official yet, but we went for a player that is called Adzic, young player that will probably be one of the next future stars. But that's where Juventus has to go for. Or opportunities like Jalot, giving a small fee to Lille. It's a bet because he's coming from a huge big injury where he didn't play since nearly 10 months, 1 year. So that's what Juventus has to do. If you're looking at the transfer market of last summer, we went only for Weah and the return of the loanee that was Andrea Cambiaso. That's it.
When you're skint or broke, you have to get creative in the market, and often these practices that you learn while you can't spend freely ultimately end up improving your approach to recruitment for the better in the future. You have better practices in place as you're forced to improve on not just your recruitment strategies, which typically have a focus on younger, unproven talents, but your talent identification as well. For so long, Juve were picking up older, out-of-contract players that were free and that they didn't cost you anything as far as a transfer fee goes, but end up costing you a lot in the long run when you factor in their high wages, signing bonuses, and the fact that they're older players who are often injured, so you have this expensive asset that's not doing anything for you. While the signings that Juve are making now may not be the blockbuster 75 million in January for Vlahovic or big money for Cristiano Ronaldo type of signings from the past, they are signings that could provide great value for the future. And when you couple this approach with the pearls that are making their way through their academy and onto their Juve Next Gen team, it's been a great combination thus far.
I'm a supporter since more than 30 years, and I have to say that I never saw youth academy products really arriving to the first team and being the talents. Of course, we can speak about the Claudio Marchisio, maybe even Giovinco, if you want to, but these players were also there because a necessity. In 2006, when we were relegated in second division, and you were obliged to find these talents, and these talents were there.
I've said in a previous video, I believe it was something to do with the Italian national team's lack of striker options or something like that. But I said that in Italy, the academies don't get utilized enough. Too often the path from the academy to the first team in Serie A isn't an easy one for young Italians at the big clubs, who often have to move on to a mid-table or lower league side in order to get minutes. Another reason is quite simply a lack of allocating funds towards developing players, instead looking to sign players to contribute to success in the present rather than plant seeds for the future. Any player that happened to come through the academy or Primavera was seen more as a bonus. Secret savings, if you will. Because think of it, they're only playing against other teams, other academy players. They're not playing against these seasoned professionals, so the chance to really improve, you have to be a special talent to get out of that academy and break into the first team. But Juve changed that way of thinking when in 2018, they founded their Juventus Next Gen team. So what is it? Think of what other sides like Real Madrid have done with their Castilla.
And we were the only team to do it like 6 years ago, to have a second team that is now playing in the third Italian division, where the competition is much higher than when you have a youth academy that is playing with under 19 players. So we see a big difference, and Juventus was the only team to invest in these players. First, it was, of course, to have the hope to one day see one of the jewels arriving to the first team, but especially to mix it with opportunities on the market, because when you are creating your own players, when you give them a bit more opportunity, you can sell them having improvement in terms of financial, because it's only profit. So it was more a financial thing with the hope of maybe seeing one player. But we understood really clearly that the market would have been more and more difficult to go and sign these huge big players from 23, 24 players at their peak. So Juventus understood quickly it was now also a necessity to not only think about cashing in, but also creating and developing players.
As Beppe noted earlier, and as I alluded to when speaking of the lack of prominent academy players present amongst the biggest Italian teams, Juve hadn't really had notable academy products playing in the first team over the past decade or so. But starting last season, we started to hear names like Miretti and Fagioli.
Today we have like 8 players that started last time that were born after the year 2000, with a lot of our players that were created in our academy. Miretti, a Fagioli that this season is not playing, but the Fagioli is also coming from academy. We're speaking about a Kneeling Jr., a Kenan Yildiz. We have so many examples. Joseph Nonje that people do not know yet, but it's the next one in line. So we have a lot of young players that were brought in. Miretti and Soulé that is doing fantastically well at Frosinone on loan, Barrenechea, Caio Giorgi, and I believe that Juventus did a fantastic job there. But it is now a necessity in Italy, and I believe that the future will be in Serie A like this. You will have a mix of 4-5 starting players that are coming from a youth academy. Otherwise, you will not be able to survive.
One next-gen graduate in particular stands out there, though he isn't with Juve at the moment, Miretti and Soulé, who is on loan at Frosinone, one of the most dangerous attackers in Serie A at the moment. He can essentially do it all, hurting teams with both his finishing and distribution, while terrorizing defenders with his ability to blow by any challenger. Then there's the guy who has recently broken through at Juventus, Kenan Yildiz, the young German-born Turkish attacker that, my goodness, you're already seeing links to Liverpool, etc. Hence why you are also hearing stories about Del Piero calling him, perhaps Juve thinking of tripling the young player's salary. So where is all of this chatter and hype coming from?
Not a lot of players were able to give me, when I'm watching a game, the feeling, okay, the ball is going in this direction, I will already stand up. The ball is coming, he's not even controlling it yet, and you already want to step up. And only 2 players at Juve gave me that feeling. It was Del Piero and it was Dybala. Of course, I saw Zidane, I saw these players, but I speak in that kind of offensive role, Del Piero, Dybala, and now he's giving me that vibe. He's not like Del Piero, wait, calma, but he's a player that is giving you the enthusiasm of something will happen. And you were absolutely not expecting it from him.
Since he has started to, start matches for Juve, good things have been happening. Every match that he has started for Juve in Serie A, they have won. A run of 5 consecutive matches now. On top of that, he has appeared in 2 Coppa Italia matches, both won, and he has scored in both of them, playing as a sort of second striker that has a tendency to float to the left of the pitch. Maybe it's a coincidence, but earlier in the season, Juve were grinding out 1-0 wins, 2-1 wins, wins like that. Since Yildiz has been a starter, Juve has been scoring more and more goals per game. 6-1 over Salernitana, 4-0 over Frosinone, 3-0 over Empoli and Sassuolo. The whole team seems to be playing better attacking-wise, in particular, Vlahovic. During the early parts of the season, while Juve was rolling along and getting some really hard-fought 1-0 or 2-1 wins, Allegri said that he was appreciating his blue-collar Juventus. Beppe went with a different name though, which is
Anti-hero Juve.
And why is that, Beppe?
Because you're all expecting Dusan Vlahovic, Chiesa, and probably also a Bremer as your star players of the team that will be there and that will solve you the games. At a certain moment, they had a dip in their performances, and then you saw that all the team was participating.
I want to interject there just to back up what Beppe was saying about the dip in form from those two players. Both Vlahovic and Chiesa started the season exceptionally well. Chiesa started with 4 goals and an assist in the first 5 Serie A matches, while Vlahovic had 4 goals and an assist in the first 4 matches. Great stuff, right? But following Juve's loss to Sassuolo on match day 5, of which Chiesa scored in that match by the way, both Chiesa and Vlahovic contributed just 3 goals between them in the next 12 matches. Granted, they also carried an injury each in that time frame, also missing a combined 3 matches. Fans of numerology fly at it, by the way. What does the 3 mean? What does it mean? Anyway, at least while they weren't scoring, Juve were still grinding out wins against the likes of AC Milan, Napoli. Well, Napoli has fallen, but still. A draw with Inter. So, who was stepping up? Because we weren't at the Yildiz era yet.
Decisive goals of Locatelli. You have a beautiful performance of Weston McKennie. Look, Weston McKennie is one of the key factors of this season. A player that last season went on loan to Leeds, where he didn't do well. Leeds didn't want to sign him. He didn't want to stay in second division of England. At a certain moment, we are not even sure if we're taking him with us in the US tour. He's there. We don't know, maybe yes, maybe no. At the end, we say, okay, come with us. And he's doing really well. He started the 2 first games of the season on the bench. He entered in that game. And since there, in first division, in Serie A, he played every single game as a starter. Where you see that this season, he's doing fantastically well.
Weston McKennie, the man who famously dumbfounded Chiellini regarding ranch on pizza.
What is he doing?
Given Chiellini has spent some time in LA, he certainly has found out about some funky pizza practices. Maybe he likes them though, because he did decide to stay in LA, so we'll see. To be confirmed in another video, maybe. Chiellini's pizza practices. Beyond McKennie, a famous name but of no relation to the former player, Andrea Cambiaso has also been a revelation for Juve.
A big surprise, a player that is able to play a new football. Not going with the role that he's playing on the field, but understanding how to fill the spaces. He can play on the left side of the field, the right side of the field. He can play in the middle now with some beautiful assists.
But it's not just McKennie who is one of the old names that is becoming important in the modern day, but a couple of names that Juve supporters were previously tired of or criticized greatly have stepped up and become important figures within Allegri's squad, helping them on this great run. Guys such as Rugani.
Every time that he's called up, he's coming there, delivering clean sheet after clean sheet after clean sheet. That's beautiful. And then a big leadership in Adrien Rabiot, a player that the first 2-3 seasons maybe were absolutely not appreciated by fans. They were happy and celebrating when he was about to go to Manchester United. A player that was able last year to convince everyone, and he's continuing this year. But on top of being the leader on the pitch last season, this time he's also a leader off the pitch, taking also the armband of captain when Danilo is not there. And he was the very first one this season, against all the management, the coach, and all the beautiful public talks that were saying Juventus is going for a publicly admitted 4th spot. This is what we want to do as a minimum, of course, minimum. He went in front of microphones and he said, look, we are doing well and we don't want to hide. In the locker rooms, we are speaking about 1st spot. Which, you know, when you have one of these players that is not scared going in for a microphone and saying, 4th spot, great, fantastic, but we want that 1st spot.
As mentioned in the intro, last season was rough. There was times in videos where I would show screenshots of Juve's shape, whether the weekend recap or Champions League recaps, and the space between the midfield and the back line was almost offensive. I believe I call it the Allegri gap. His tactics felt stale, like they were stuck back in 2019 when they were already going stale. However, he has seemingly freshened things up this season with a few new ideas.
Higher pressing, new ideas. No, new ideas for you, but these kind of things exist already.
Hey, I mean, that's a start, right? So what else are we seeing?
Bigger intensity, some movements that we were not seeing the last years. And I saw also these kind of things implemented on the field in the 3-4 first games of the season. But there was a big, huge imbalance because, yes, it's true, we were more attacking minded. And we saw this kind of thing where everyone was happy, the supporters were happy, but we were conceding a few goals.
So Allegri reverted back to what he has always done at Juve. As Beppe explained, and as we have mentioned in previous videos, Allegri is a man obsessed with balance, and for him, balance always begins with defensive assuredness. The man will take no risks in the attack if he isn't absolutely sure that his team can keep it tidy at the back. Does this make for the most exciting football? No, not really, but it is basically the definition of results-based football. And this season, after losing 4-2 to Sassuolo,
Max Allegri said, wait, stop a minute, because like that, it's not okay. And don't forget, after match day 3, you lose Paul Pogba. After match day 7, you lose Nicolo Fagioli. So we had to calm down a bit and going back to basics, which we did.
And they haven't lost since. 18 matches straight now, where Juve have kept 11 clean sheets in that run and haven't conceded more than 1 goal in any of those matches. That's pretty impressive.
Max Allegri said in front of microphone, it's not that I like the cortomuso, short snout victories, but if they bring me the points, I take them. Of course, I would prefer to win 3-0, but if it's not possible, I prefer to win them. So a big debate online between haters, lovers, between the result people, between the entertaining people. And then something happened in 2024, the first game where you start winning 6-1, then you start winning 4-0, then you start 2 games in a row, 3-0, 3-0, where Juventus not only solid defensively, but is also now trying up front.
And like I said earlier, call it a coincidence, but those attacking performances have improved since Yildiz has been brought into the team. I mean, Vlahovic with 2 consecutive braces. Mind you, the brace against Lecce was pretty funny. The man absolutely robbed McKennie of that goal. But also the importance of Cambiaso to their attack cannot be understated either. He's definitely a player that you're going to want to keep your eye on or keep your ears aware of. So at the moment, there is no doubt that what happened to Juventus, or what Juventus did to themselves, if you wish, off of the pitch was absolutely detrimental to the club, their finances, and hey, to their reputation as well. But often when poor practices are in place, they have a habit of deeply entrenching themselves to the point where they're hard to shake. And it can take something like a crisis of this magnitude in order to change for the better. Again, the financial hit from not playing in Europe, bad, especially when you consider how those finances will go to one of your rivals and allow them to strengthen their squad. However, I personally believe that this ultimately has helped Juve to take a breather. It's helped them to get their house in order at the board level, financially and legally. It's allowed them to bring in a brilliant technical director in Giuntoli. And this break has also forced Juventus to change their ways in the market, which has given way to more opportunities to their clearly very talented next-gen players. Sometimes you have to break something in order to build it back up with better foundations. Alright guys, this was a long one, but thank you for joining me for this video, and as always, a big thank you to my friend Beppe. Always a pleasure chatting with you, and hey, for everyone who's watching, go and check out Footballed for pretty much daily uploads of football news from across Europe. But beyond that, thank you once again for watching. I'm Adrian, and we'll hopefully see you in the next video. Take care.